The unexpected war snow fell gently from the sky, covering the battlefield in silence. The war had ended, but the scars remained. Burnt ships, broken armor, and lifeless bodies lay across the icy ground. Among them stood a lone human soldier, breathing heavily, his face bruised but proud. His name was Jace Carter, and he was the last human still standing in enemy territory. He was not supposed to survive. The Zeltraxian Empire, led by the fearsome and massive Queen Thalara, had crushed almost every resistance. Their warriors were twice the size of humans, and their technology far more advanced. The humans had sent a small team of elite soldiers to stop the Queen's forward army, but they all perished. Except Jace. As the snow thickened, alien troops surrounded him, weapons raised. But Jace didn't run. He simply stood tall, his blaster low, his armor scratched and frozen. He looked tired, but not afraid. From the shadows of the icy forest, tall figures stepped forward. The guards parted, and then she arrived. Queen Thalara, the 8-foot-tall ruler of the Zeltraxian world. Her skin was glowing orange with sharp markings across her arms and chest. Her long crimson hair hung behind her back like fire against the snow. She wore a biosuit that was fused into her body, part armor, part skin. She looked down at Jace, with amused eyes. "So, this is the last of Earth's brave heroes," she said, voice deep yet smooth. He looked small. Her generals chuckled, but Jace stayed quiet. His eyes didn't blink. "Why didn't you run?" Thalara asked, tilting her head. "You knew your team was dead." "Running won't change that," Jace replied, his voice calm. "Besides, I was curious. I wanted to see the alien queen everyone fears." The soldiers laughed louder now. One stepped forward, raising his plasma staff. But the queen held up a hand to stop him. "You're bold," she said. "Or maybe just stupid." Jace shrugged. "Maybe both." Thalara's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. There was something about this human, something different. He wasn't strong, he wasn't armed, yet he stood with confidence like he didn't care about death. "Tell me," she said, walking closer. "Why should I let you live?" "Because you've already won," Jace answered. "Killing me doesn't prove anything. But keeping me alive? That'll confuse your enemies. Maybe even scare them." The queen chuckled, a low rumble in her throat. "You think too highly of yourself, human." "Maybe," Jace said, smiling slightly. "But I'm still standing, that counts for something." There was a long silence. Snowflakes danced in the air between them. Then Thalara leaned closer, her face just inches from his. "Very well," she said. "You amuse me." With a snap of her fingers, her guards lowered their weapons. Jace was taken in chains, not as a prisoner of war, but as a curiosity, as they walked toward the massive black ship in the distance. Soldiers whispered to each other. No human had ever been captured alive. No one dared talk back to the queen. No one ever survived the war. Until now. Inside the queen's ship, Jace was given food, medical attention, and a warm room. He was treated well, but watched closely. Cameras followed him. Guards stood at his door. He knew he wasn't free, not really. Still, something strange was happening. The queen kept asking for him. She would call him to her throne room every night, asking him odd questions. "Do all humans lie as easily as you?" she asked once. "Only when it helps," he replied. "Why do humans kiss?" she asked another time. "It's how we show trust, or desire." "Strange species," she muttered, watching him closely. Each day, the queen's interest grew. She laughed at him, mocked him, but always wanted to talk. Her council began to notice. So did her soldiers. Why was the queen spending so much time with a human? Back in his quarters, Jace stared out of the window, watching stars pass by in the dark sky. He knew he was being tested, maybe studied. But he also knew something else. This was no longer just about war. The royal test the next morning. The royal. Guards entered Jace's room without a word. Their faces were serious. One of them held a long black box, Another carried a scroll with the royal seal. "You are summoned," said the taller guard. "The queen has prepared something special." Jace raised an eyebrow but followed without resistance. He had a feeling this was coming. They took him deep into the royal palace, far below the icy floors, through dark tunnels, and into a hidden chamber lined with glowing symbols. It was ancient. The air was heavy. Something about this place felt sacred and dangerous. Inside the room stood Queen Thalara, surrounded by her 4 elite generals. She looked down at Jace with unreadable eyes. "Human," she said calmly. "You are still alive. That surprises me." Jace gave a slight grin. "Same here." The generals didn't smile. One stepped forward, glaring. "This creature is not worthy of your attention, my queen." Thalara raised her hand to silence him. "Then let him prove it," she said. She turned to Jace and stepped closer. Her height made her look like a living statue, strong, powerful, and unreal. "Today I give you 3 royal trials," she said. "If you survive them, you'll be more than just a curiosity. If you fail, you'll die." Jace swallowed, but his voice didn't shake. "Let's get started then." Trial 1. The E.T. frozen path Jace was dropped in the middle of a wide canyon with nothing but light clothes and no weapons. The snowstorm was blinding. The temperature dropped fast. His only goal was to reach the signal beacon 5 miles away, before nightfall. But the terrain was cruel. Hidden ice pits, slippery cliffs, and sudden winds tried to stop him. His body shook from the cold, but he pushed forward using what he had, his brain. He built a torch from alien moss and old ship scraps. He tied his shirt around his face to protect it. And when he found a wild frost beast blocking his path, he didn't fight it. He scared it off by throwing heated rocks at its feet. He reached the beacon just as the red sun dipped below the hills. "He survived the ice," one general whispered. "Impossible." Trial 2. The mind mirror back in the palace, they didn't give Jace rest. Instead, they strapped him to a glowing chair with silver cords. "Now we test your mind," Thalara said. Watching from above, a psychic orb hovered in front of him. As soon as it touched his forehead, images filled his mind. His worst fears, regrets, and secrets. He saw his old squad dying, his family back on Earth, his own failures. "You are weak," the voice of the orb whispered. "Let go." But Jace gritted his teeth. He spoke back. "Fear doesn't own me." The orb pulsed, flickered, and then dimmed. He passed. Thalara's eyes widened just a bit. She leaned forward in her throne. Trial 3. The choice for the final test, they gave Jace a weapon, a plasma blade, and opened a door. Inside was a wounded alien girl, chained and crying. Next to her was a locked door with a single key. A voice echoed, "You may free her and face death together, or leave her and escape alone." Jace didn't hesitate. He rushed to the girl, broke her chains, and carried her out, only to face a line of armed guards. But before anyone could shoot, Thalara raised her hand again. Enough. She stood from her throne. He passed. The room fell silent. "You passed not because of strength," the queen said, walking toward him, "but because you used your mind, your heart." Jace stood tall, though tired. "Was that the point?" "Yes," she said. "And now, I'm curious." Her eyes softened, just a little. Then she turned her back to the crowd and said, "Bring him to my chamber tonight." The generals stared in shock, and so did Jace. The queen's invitation. The palace halls had never been so silent. Guards looked at each other in confusion. Servants whispered. No one could believe it. A human, small, simple, and soft by Zeltraxian standards, had been summoned to the queen's private chamber. That had never happened in history. No male, not even her own species, had been given such an honor. Many had tried to impress Queen Thalara. All had failed. And yet, this human named Jace Carter had passed her trials, and now, walked toward her chamber with steady steps. He didn't know what waited for him behind those towering black doors, but he didn't hesitate. When the doors opened, Jace stepped inside. It wasn't what he expected. The Queen's private chamber wasn't cold and metallic like the rest of the palace. It was warm, almost alive. Bioluminescent vines glowed along the ceiling. A large throne made of crystal-like roots rose in the center. The air smelled like sweet spices and alien flowers. Queen Thalara stood near a giant window, her back to him, looking out at the stars. She spoke without turning. "Do you know why you're here, human?" Jace stayed calm. "I'm guessing it's not for tea." The Queen let out a quiet laugh. The sound was soft, almost human. She turned to face him. Her long red hair flowed over her shoulders like fire. Her armor was gone. She now wore a black silk robe with golden markings glowing like stars. She was still 8 feet tall, still powerful. But there was something else in her eyes tonight. Curiosity, and something deeper. "You passed all 3 trials," she said, "but that was not the real test." Jace frowned. "Then what was?" She walked slowly toward him, her glowing eyes locked onto his. "The real test was how you made me feel." Jace blinked, unsure what she meant. "No male of my kind has made me hesitate," she continued. "None have stood before me without fear. None have looked into my eyes and made me question my instincts." She now stood so close Jace had to tilt his head up just to meet her gaze. "You are not strong like us, but you are brave. You are strange. And you make me feel—" She paused, then whispered, "Alive." Jace didn't speak. He didn't need to. The Queen reached out her hand and gently touched his face. Her fingers were warm, softer than he expected. "Tell me, Jace," she said, "how do humans bond?" He hesitated. "With trust, with closeness. Sometimes, with touch." She leaned down, her face inches from his. "Then touch me." Jace raised his hand and placed it gently on her cheek. Her skin pulsed softly beneath his touch like heat passing between them. Her breath caught. Her pupils widened. For a moment, there was no war, no throne, no empire. Just 2 beings from different worlds standing together in silence. Then the Queen stepped back. "Enough," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Leave me." Jace opened his mouth to speak, but she turned away. "I said leave." He nodded, once and quietly exited the chamber. As the doors closed behind him, Thalara stood alone, staring at her reflection in the crystal wall. Her heart was racing. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her body felt strange. Her skin was warmer than usual, her pulse quicker. For the first time in decades, her thoughts were not about battles or planets or power. They were about him. "Why?" she whispered into the darkness. "Why does a human make me feel this way?" She placed a hand over her chest. Her heartbeat was fast, her body confused. She had laughed at the idea of breeding with a human. Now, she wasn't so sure. "Her body begins to change." Queen Thalara sat alone in her royal meditation pool, submerged to her waist in shimmering purple liquid. This sacred pool once calmed her thoughts, but not today. Something was wrong. Or perhaps something was awakening. She touched her neck and noticed her skin felt warmer, softer. Her senses were sharper. Even now, she could still feel the memory of Jace's hand on her cheek. That single touch had echoed in her system like a ripple across still water. "This is not logical," she whispered. "Celtraxian queens were built for war, not emotion. Their bodies were engineered to resist sickness, weakness, and bonding. Yet, over the last few days, her body had changed. She was hungrier, not for food, but for closeness. Her temperature fluctuated wildly. Her heart rate increased when she remembered his eyes, and worst of all, Her inner energy core pulsed in strange patterns, ones she had never seen before. That evening, the royal healer was summoned in secret. The medic, a gray-scaled alien named Rivak, was loyal and discreet. "My queen," he said softly, scanning her glowing wristband. "There is an anomaly." "Speak clearly," Thalara snapped. He looked up, nervous. "Your body is creating signals consistent with mating readiness." The queen's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. Our kind only enters that state once every 20 years. I completed my last cycle 4 ago." Rivak hesitated, then turned the screen. "And yet, this shows your hormonal levels have increased 5-fold since the human arrived. Your temperature, emotional fluctuation, and neural reactions all match the beginning phase of bonding." There was a long silence. "Are you telling me," she growled, "that I'm reacting to him?" The medic didn't answer. He didn't have to. Later, alone in her chamber, Thalara stared at her reflection. She ran a hand along her stomach. It was firmer, warmer. A faint glow pulsed beneath the skin. "What are you doing to me, human?" she muttered. Every logical part of her mind screamed this was a mistake. But something deeper, ancient, primal, was waking up inside her, for the first time in her life. She was afraid. Not of death. Not of war. But of change. Meanwhile, Jace was in the training hall going through slow combat motions. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Not just her beauty or her strength, but the way her hand trembled slightly when he touched her. The way her voice softened. She wasn't just a queen. She was someone trapped inside her own power. He didn't know what was happening to her, but he knew it was real. And deep inside, something was changing in him too. The next morning, an emergency meeting was called by the Queen's High Council. Her generals, ministers, and scientists were all present. The air was tense. General Marnak, the head of her warriors, stood up. "My queen," he said respectfully but firmly, "we have heard troubling reports. You spend too much time with the human. You ignore council matters. Our allies are starting to whisper." Thalara raised an eyebrow. "Do you question me?" "No, my queen, but we question your focus. This creature, he distracts you." Another general spoke. "There is talk among the outer colonies. They say you are growing weak, that a human has infected your thoughts." Thalara's eyes flashed. She stood slowly, her full height rising, above all of them. "Let them whisper," she said. "A queen does not need permission to feel. And if one human makes this empire tremble, perhaps it is not as strong as we thought." Silence followed. The room shook with her words. That night, Thalara sat on the edge of her bed, breathing slowly. Her hand drifted to her stomach again, and for the first time, she felt a soft, tiny pulse. Something inside her. Alive. Her eyes widened. No. The impossible truth. The Queen's chamber was locked. No guards, no servants. Just darkness. And silence. Queen Thalara sat alone in her glowing meditation circle, eyes shut, hand resting over her lower abdomen. For 3 nights, she had felt a second heartbeat, small, gentle, alive. It was no longer a theory, no longer a question. She was pregnant. And worse, the child inside her was not pure Zeltraxian. Its energy signature was different, wild, unknown. It was part human. She had summoned her royal medic, Rivak, again, this time with the strictest secrecy. He entered through hidden doors carrying ancient tools never used in 1,000 years. "Scan again," she ordered. Rivak hesitated but obeyed. A glowing orb floated above her stomach, humming softly. Strange symbols flashed around it. And then it pulsed, a color no Zeltraxian had ever seen in medical readings. "Hybrid energy," Rivak whispered. "It's true." "Say it out loud," Thalara demanded. He swallowed hard. "You carry a hybrid child, Queen Thalara. part human, part you. She stood slowly, the glow of her veins pulsing brighter. But how? She asked. I don't know, Rivak confessed. This shouldn't be possible. Our species don't match. We've tried with others, failed every time. But your body, it didn't reject him. She turned away, her heart pounding, a child inside her. From him. She thought back to their first touch. That moment in her chamber, the warmth in her body, her confusion, her anger. Now, it all made sense. Outside the chamber, things were growing tense. Rumors had spread fast, too fast. Some soldiers said the queen had fallen under a spell. Others claimed the human had poisoned her mind. The Council of Purity, a secretive group of hardliners, now whispered of rebellion. They believed the queen was becoming corrupted. Inside the throne room, Thalara met with her top general, Marnak. You've been hiding something, he said coldly. The people feel it. Even the stars seem quiet. Thalara looked at him. And if I am? Then I must act, my queen, he said. For the safety of the empire. Her fingers curled into a fist. You forget who rules this empire, Marnak. Not for long, he replied, and walked away. She knew now. They would come for her. Meanwhile, Jace stood at the edge of the palace gardens, looking up at the sky. He didn't understand what was happening, but he could feel it. Something had shifted. Thalara hadn't summoned him in days. Guards gave him cold stares. He wasn't just a guest anymore. He was a threat. He turned when he heard footsteps behind him. It was Rivak, the medic. She needs to see you, Rivak whispered. Now, before it's too late. Inside the hidden chamber, Thalara waited. When Jace entered, he froze. She looked different. Her skin glowed deeper. Her posture was more relaxed, yet something fierce blazed in her eyes. He took a step forward. Thalara, what's going on? She stared at him. Do you trust me, human? He nodded slowly. Yes. She reached for his hand and placed it, gently over her stomach. He felt it the faintest thump. Is that... he whispered. She nodded. You did this, she said softly. Somehow, your body, your touch, it changed me. Jace was speechless. They will come for me now, she added. They fear this child. They fear you. He met her gaze. Then we protect it, he said. The queen smiled faintly for the first time. In that moment, they were no longer enemies, no longer alien and human. They were a family, and the galaxy wasn't ready. The rebellion. Within, the palace lights flickered for the third time that night. Something was wrong. Queen Thalara stood on the balcony of Ra, her war tower, her long red hair whipping in the cold wind. Below, the capital city buzzed with unease. Patrol ships moved faster. Streets were quieter. Whispers had turned into silent planning, and in the shadows, rebellion was growing. Inside the War Council chamber, General Marnak removed his helmet. His eyes burned with anger. She's no longer our queen, he hissed. She carries a creature, not a legacy. We must act. 6 other commanders stood with him, all old blood, all loyal to the Council of Purity. This hybrid must not be born, one said. The human must die, said another. Marnak nodded. Tonight we take back the throne. At the same time, deep within a hidden medical sanctuary beneath the palace, Jace stood at Thalara's side. The room glowed in soft orange light, filled with ancient Zeltraxian tech. She lay on a curved bed of living crystal. Her breathing was steady, her hand resting over her growing belly. Jace sat nearby, sharpening a blade, half ceremonial, half weapon. I never thought I'd be protecting a queen, he muttered with a dry smile. And I never thought I'd be carrying a human's child, Thalara replied softly. They both shared a quiet laugh, short but real. Then her eyes turned serious. They will come tonight. Let them, Jace said, sliding the blade into his belt. Jace, she said, sitting up. If they capture me, they will try to cut it out. He froze. Then they'll have to go through me first. Hours passed. The sky turned dark. The wind outside grew louder. Then, boom, a shockwave rocked the palace. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the halls. The main gates had been blown open. Marnak's forces were inside. Jace grabbed his plasma rifle and stood at the entrance to the chamber. Thalara, still glowing faintly from her energy core, stood beside him, taller, stronger, but now vulnerable in a way she'd never been before. You should escape through the hidden tunnel, she told him. Not without you. I can't fight like this. Then you'll just have to command from behind me. She smirked. The doors burst open. Blaster fire lit the hallway. Jace moved like lightning, rolling, firing, ducking. His Earth training was fast, brutal, precise. Alien soldiers didn't expect such speed from a smaller human. He dropped 5 attackers in seconds. But then Marnak entered, towering, armored, furious. He pointed his electrified war spear at Jace. You defiled our queen, Earthborn. You will. Die slowly. Jace raised his blade. I'm getting tired of being called small. They clashed. Steel and sparks. Blood and fury. Jace fought smart. He didn't try to overpower Marnak. He used the narrow walls, dodged attacks, struck with precision. Meanwhile, behind him, Thalara activated her throne's defense core. A shield rose around her and the child. She watched Jace fight, for her, for their child, for their future, and her heart, strong, alien, once cold, now beat with something new. Love. The final blow came fast. Jace ducked, slid under Marnak's strike, and drove the ceremonial blade deep into the general's chest. The weapon glowed. As it pierced armor and bone, Marnak gasped. She is not one of us anymore, Jace whispered. No, she's better. The general fell. Silence. Later, as smoke cleared and rebel soldiers surrendered, Thalara stepped into the light, her belly now softly glowing with life. This empire was built on fear, she said aloud to her people, but my child will be born from hope. You fear change. You fear the human, but he stood when your strongest fell. He protected your queen when you turned away. She looked at Jace. And now I choose him. That night, stars above Zeltrax burned a little, brighter. The queen had survived. The rebellion was crushed. But something far greater had begun. Rise of the hybrid empire. 1 week had passed since the rebellion fell. The palace had been repaired, but the scars remained. Cracks in walls, burn marks on stone. And in the hearts of the people, uncertainty. No empire changes overnight, but change had begun. Queen Thalara stood at the center of the Starborn Council chamber, her body wrapped in ceremonial armor that shimmered with soft blue light. Her hand rested gently over her stomach, now glowing faintly with a new kind of life, one that had never existed before. A child born of 2 worlds. Beside her stood Jace Carter, not in chains, not as a prisoner, but as her chosen protector, and something more. Some still whispered behind closed doors, but none dared defy her now. Today, Thalara spoke, her voice steady and clear. We close the chapter of fear and open one of unity. Gasps echoed across the chamber. No Zeltraxian queen had ever spoken those words. This child I carry is not a mistake, she continued. He is proof that strength is not only in blood, but in the heart. That love can grow even across galaxies. A few ministers stepped forward. But he is human, one said carefully. Will the people accept a hybrid heir? They will, Thalara said, or I will burn down this council and rebuild it myself. Silence. Then slow, quiet nods. They had seen what she did to the rebels. No one questioned her love or her wrath. In the outer city, word of the queen's speech spread like wildfire. The people were confused, curious, but also amazed. Some had seen Jace fight during the siege. Some had seen him bleed for their queen, and now they saw him walk freely beside her, head held high as if he belonged. Because maybe he did. Later that evening, deep within the palace, Thalara lay in her private chamber as soft alien music played. The lights above showed stars spinning across the sky dome. Jace sat beside her, resting his hand lightly on her stomach. "Do you think they'll ever accept me?" he asked quietly. "No," she replied honestly. "But they will accept us." He smiled at that. "That works." Her breathing slowed. She looked peaceful. Then suddenly, her eyes opened wide. A sharp wave moved through her body. "What's wrong?" Jace asked, jumping up. She gritted her teeth, her glowing veins pulsing fast. "It's time." Panic hit the palace like thunder. Healers rushed to the queen's side. Ancient machines awoke from deep slumber. The birthing process of a Zeltraxian queen was something only told in stories, and never mixed with human DNA. Her body lit up like a sun. Her screams echoed through the halls, strong and fierce. And at Jace's side, no soldier dared move. He waited, heart racing, until finally, a sound broke the air. Not a scream, not a roar, but the soft cry of a newborn. The healers stepped back. One held the baby in his arms, wrapped in a glowing cloth. The child's skin shimmered with a strange tone, neither fully orange nor human tan. His eyes glowed faintly with two colors, blue and gold. The baby reached up, gripping Jace's finger with surprising strength. Thalara, weak but smiling, looked up at both of them. "We made something impossible," she whispered. "We made history," Jace replied. Months passed. The hybrid prince, as they began to call him, became a symbol, not of war, but of what comes after. Thalara's enemies stayed silent, allies grew curious, and other empires watched and wondered. If an 8-foot alien queen and a human soldier could bring peace, maybe the galaxy wasn't doomed after all. One day the queen stood on the royal balcony, her child in one arm, and Jace at her side. Thousands of her people stood below, watching. She raised her voice one final time. From laughter came doubt. From doubt came fear. But from fear, we found something greater. Hope. "This is my heir. This is my mate. This is our future." The crowd roared. And so began a new age, the age of the hybrid empire.